Welcome back guys to another one. Today let's have a look at the classic enclosure from SilverStone with its SUGO series in its current iteration, the 16 model, which is an ITX DTX support format and it's quite versatile. So let's build it. This particular SUGO series from SilverStone has seen a lot of variation throughout its timeline since it has offered a solid ITX cube solution. It can be had in either black or white and they retail for around 90 bucks. To name some of its main highlights, we have DTX and ITX motherboard support, a standard ATX PSU and of course SFX with SFXL are also accepted, and you can even install a 120mm AIO with a GPU up to 275mm long. Thus, this enclosure at just 13 liters is quite versatile since it lets you do some interesting combos in the component selection. It comes in your standard brown box with an outline of the case on the front and some of the specs on the smaller sides. Protection is plenty thanks to the double pads and thick plastic cover. The bundle accessories are exactly what you need, as in the installation screws, some thin zip ties, and SilverStone decided to let you if you want to attach the thick rubber feet to the case. Right. Here is the SUGO16, an all-metal cube enclosure that has a minimalist look. It's so inconspicuous that you can easily mistake it for a larger speaker. 3 out of the 4 sides, front, top and the main side, have cutouts in the panels with removable magnetic dust filters. Zooming in on the front panel, we discover an interesting design detail that the activity LED is present in the top left ventilation hole. By removing the same panel, this reveals the full LED implementation. Also, the front panel uses these large big metal pushpin style tabs that will ensure a secure lock-in. On the top we have the other magnetic dust filter and the front IAO. As you can see, the power on off button has a radial ribbed finish to it, which will light up when it used. Next we have a small reset button, 2 USB 3.0 Type A and 1 microphone 3.5mm jack. Finishing up the exterior, the rear sides indicates that the SUGO16 can accommodate a dual slot GPU and a 120mm fan or AIO with vertically adjustable mounting holes. Then the main panels use large built-in stump screws. The last detail is the PSU port on the top left corner. Now let's explore its guts since the SUGO16 has an interesting layout. This is the front where the top large cutout is to facilitate the installation of a GPU. Also, through the lower smaller indent of the same cutout, there is where you will route the PSU extension cord, since the PSU in either format will be placed with its port facing forward. The front mesh part can accommodate either an 80, 92 or 120mm fan depending on what PSU you choose. Alternatively, you may also install a single 2.5 or 3.5 inch drive instead of the fan. Now this bracket with its rubber pad acts as a GPU holder which can be removed if needed. Now this constitutes the side view where the PSU will reside, close to the perforated main side panel. If you go the ATX route for the PSU, then this large rubber pad will offer an extra point of contact and support. Right next to it there is a removable 2.5 inch SSD hard drive tray, and of course that's the PSU extension cable. GPU support is quite good given the case's small footprint, so a dual slot graphics card up to 25mm long will fit. On the opposite side we have a generous motherboard cutout, which as you will see later, it offers full access to the socket area and the M.2 port if present. It's highly appreciated that SilverStone made all of the front AIO cables in matching black, and they even have the proper length to reach where intended on your motherboard. Now, to better understand how you can build in the SUGO16, the main choice is what PSU you will have, since the ATX will influence everything else because it's obviously a larger unit. With an ATX PSU, this means that you need to employ a real placed 120mm AIO for the CPU cooling, since the ATX PSU will take a lot of the available space. Things are more flexible when going the SFX route because you can even install a 120mm air cooler up to 172mm tall. So after you install the motherboard, proceed to install your desired CPU cooling. I went for an alternative unofficial route, a nod to the case's versatility. I used the 92mm AIO placed on the front of the side. You may recognize it from the Dan A4 since it's the ATX 645 LT. As you can see, this layout with an intake works perfectly fine as well, and you can even install an additional rear 120mm fan for more airflow to be exhausted. Then install all of your front AIO cables and RAM sticks. Now this is what I meant by a full and easy access to the back of the motherboard. Don't forget to attach the PSU cable and turn on the PSU power button if present. Finally, attach the PSU and GPU, which are really easy since the graphics card, in my case being an ITX, barely uses the available space. All of the PSU cables can be easily tucked underneath it, even with the presence of this 92mm AIO. Finally, here is a size comparison to the 7-liter DAN A4 SFX enclosure, which is almost half of the SUGO16s. Also, here is it next to my newest build in the Fantex Evolve Shift XT at 17 liters in this configuration. Testing wise, I just wanted to see how the enclosure will perform without any extra case airflow, since most of the components are so crammed in together, to see if there will be any problems. The CPU had to be tamed since in stock form it offers highly inconsistent temp results. This is because of its volatile overboost nature of pumping high voltage values for short periods of time to offer you max performance depending on your cooling. With this out of the way, as you can see, the CPU temps even under full load are quite good. Then the GPU results are highly dependent on its own cooling, since the case offers a generous cutout for it to breathe even if it's a dual fan model. In my case, that tiny single fan EVGA GTX 650 Ti didn't break a sweat. All in all, this was the only GPU I had on hand that will actually fit the SUGO16. Lastly, the sound output is as expected on the audible side because the case offers no sound insulation of any kind. So you are highly dependent on how cool you can keep your components and thus in return how silent. It's nothing too dramatic, but some manual RPM curves will take care of it since my tests were done with everything on auto RPM. Well, there you have it guys. Make no mistake, the SUGO16 is a fun enclosure to build in because at just 13 liters you can't believe the fact that you can install such a wide range of fairly large components like the 275mm long dual slot GPU, 172mm tall heatsinks or a 120mm AIO, not to mention the regular size ATX PSU unit and a couple of drives. Thus it's a versatile case, but you need to be aware of what combos to match to get the best results. The PSU you choose will dictate the rest of your build, so make sure you get an SFX unit for the best flexibility. In my opinion, this case will perform at its best, cooling and thus noise output wise as well, by installing a rear 120mm AIO, the SFX PSU and the dual fan GPU, and with a front intake 120mm fan with some quick manual RPM curve settings. I mean, the fact that it offered good results with my unofficial build layout with that 92mm AIO up front and no other case fans, it's still something of an achievement. As for negatives, which are pretty obvious by now, there are no bundle fans for the highish asking price. It's not that free flowing since that versatility comes with the price of a more limiting interior design layout, thus all of the venting areas are blocked one way or the other. Finally, and there is no sound insulation of any kind, so everything is dependent on how cool and how silent your components are. So what you guys think about it? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Alex out. So, just so I can know for reference, if I look like this, can you see my eyes? Like I'm looking to you, into the camera.
Wow.
So I can find like a point.
Kinda.
So if I look like this, is it like looking at the viewers? More to the right, more to the left. Because if I look into the camera, see where it is? It looks off center.
So you need to look this way.
Like this.
But
in the middle.
Okay. No, you're still looking that way.
Yeah, this is what I mean, so I can find the point of reference.
Look here. Go down a bit.
Okay.
No, over. You had it a minute ago, now I can't.
See what I mean? It's weird, yeah.
I know.
So if you come to my angle, come here so I can show you. See, what do I look like? The Samsung logo, the LEDs, the dot here. See what I mean? It's confusing because so I think it's this one, the middle one. 2 hours later. Done. Okay.
Kinda, yeah. Mostly, you're mostly there.
Mostly there. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One eye anyway.
One eye. Yeah, that's the other eye. You wanna do it? So let's build in it. Everything I said, it's off script anyway. So I did.